Because the more AI know about your world, the more it can help you do.
Protect your ride. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And that's where State Farm comes in, to help you choose the coverage you need, so you can relax until you hear,
"Can we pick up my boyfriend?"
"Wait, what?" Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
And you're here. Thanks for choosing the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. Your quest for podcasts of the paranormal, supernatural, and the unexplained ends here. We invite you to enjoy all our shows we have on this network. And right now, let's start with Strange Things with Joshua P. Warren.
Welcome to our podcast. Please be aware the thoughts and opinions expressed by the host are their thoughts and opinions only and do not reflect those of iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio, Coast to Coast AM, employees of Premier Networks, or their sponsors and associates. We would like to encourage you to do your own research and discover the subject matter for yourself.
Joshua P. Warren, and each week on this show, I'll be bringing you brand new, mind-blowing content, news, exercises, and weird experiments you can do at home, and a lot more. On this edition of the show, the Electrum Ring. I recently received an email from a big fan of this show named Jimmy, and he lives in Virginia, here in the I am Joshua P. Warren, and each week on this show, I'll be bringing you brand new, mind-blowing content, news, exercises, and weird experiments you can do at home, and a lot more. On this edition of the show, the Electrum Ring. I recently received an email from a big fan of this show named Jimmy, and he lives in Virginia, here in the USA. I have all of his info, and the email was rather lengthy, so it took me a few days to get around to reading it. I'm glad that I did. And so I'm going to give you a somewhat edited version of what he wrote. The subject line was Electrum, that's spelled Electrum, Electrum, human's first metamaterial, with a question mark. Okay, let me pause for a moment. What is a metamaterial? Well, generally speaking, it's a physical substance with extraordinary properties. For a more modern definition, if we just go to Wikipedia, it says a metamaterial comes from the Greek words meta, meaning beyond or after, and the Latin word materia, meaning matter or material. And it is any material engineered to have a property that is not found in naturally occurring materials. Now, there's actually, I think, a caveat to that, which we'll get back to. But so again, metamaterial, it quite literally means beyond material or beyond matter. It kind of reminds you of that term paranormal, doesn't it? You can almost call it paramaterial. So you get the idea. Now to the email. So Jimmy writes, "Hi Joshua, I have wanted to email you for a while now. I also like to experiment with various things and make things out of various materials. My primary artistic endeavors deal with metal. I started out as a blacksmith and quickly discovered that it was much easier to make jewelry in an apartment than it was to do blacksmithing. Anyway, during my transition from blacksmith to jeweler, I became very interested in various alloys, and in particular, electrum. Okay, now let me pause again, everybody. Now, if you do not know what electrum is, well, I did not either. So I will be explaining that to you soon. All right, so don't worry if you feel like you're in the dark for a minute. That's fine. Back to his email. My major focus when making jewelry was Celtic stuff, and I tried to reproduce some of the designs and motifs found. But I also looked at all sorts of ancient jewelry and artifacts, mostly using various archaeological texts and museum collection books. And that's when I began to notice that a lot of items that were described as being religious or magical in nature often specifically included electrum. Even if the item was also made out of different alloys, they always went out of their way to say that it included electrum. Most of these ancient people could make relatively pure gold if they had the desire to do so, so I began to wonder and question, why would they want to use electrum? Well, I think I discovered why this is. I eventually decided to make myself some to see if I could determine what the big deal was. The following is what happened when I did so. In order for me to learn the jewelry business, I found a master to apprentice myself to for a bit. I had gathered all the materials together that I needed to make electrum and decided that I would do so under his tutelage at his shop versus my own for the first time. I had not made my own, so I wanted to do it correctly. Now, electrum can mean various things, but I am specifically referring to the alloy that is 50% pure gold and 50% pure silver by weight. I'm going to pause again. Okay, so he is telling you that when he's talking about electrum, we're talking about a mixture of gold and silver. So he goes on to say, for my source of gold, I used a 1 pennyweight pure gold maple leaf coin from Canada. And for the silver, I just used fine silver casting grain from a jewelry making supply. The other supplies that I rounded up were some casting flux, specific matte casting flux, and a new ceramic crucible for melting things in, as well as a carbon graphite stirring rod. These are all common items that are used when manufacturing jewelry. I began by melting the coin in the crucible with a little bit of flux using an acetylene torch. I then added the silver, which I had measured and weighed, to be also 1 pennyweight worth of silver. I melted everything together and quickly stirred it with the carbon rod. I turned off the torch and allowed it to cool, both the crucible and the small bead of metal in the bottom, for a few minutes. When no more color appeared in the metal, I dumped it out onto the workbench for further cooling. I believe I had a ceramic pad on the workbench at that time, but I don't honestly remember exactly that part. I let it cool for a few minutes before I decided it was time to pick it up. It had the appearance roughly of silver with a slight yellow tinge to it. This color in the jewelry industry is actually known as green gold, because if you hold it up next to yellow gold, it does appear to be slightly green. I reached for the piece with my left hand, and when I picked it up, I immediately dropped it. I did so not because it was too hot, it was actually surprisingly cool, but because of a jolt of energy that went up my arm. It was literally quite shocking. I reached down again and picked it up a second time with my left hand, and the same thing occurred. I reached for a third time with my left hand, and the same thing occurred. And now I decided that I would switch to my right hand, thinking that maybe it had something to do with it being the left side of the body. The left hand is often the receiving hand, magically speaking, of course. I then then reached with my right hand, and sure enough, it zapped me again, and I just dropped it. At that point, my master was actually laughing at me. He often did this when he remembered things that he had encountered himself when doing things. He was that kind of teacher, LOL. Let a student make their own mistakes and find their own way. I reached for a second time with my left hand, and it zapped me again, and I said, "Now stop that!" And then I reached once more, and there was a slight jolt, but not quite as powerful. So I no longer dropped it. And so now I can hold the metal in my hand and examine it. I began trying to learn what the working properties of the metal were at that point. Now, it being made out of gold, I could never afford really to play with it as much as I wanted to. But that did not stop me from doing so. I ended up making several pieces of jewelry from it and also some other items. Some of them have gone by the wayside over the years, but I still have a few. I have a pendant set with a cameo fine stone that I still wear. And one of the side effects from that, although it does not zap me, is that it makes the skin underneath it, on my chest, warm every time I wear it. I also ended up making a very special wand with it. This one is made from yew wood, with an alloy cap at the tip and an alloy wire running through the center, as well as a band where the taper joins the handle and with the sterling silver end cap. There are also tourmaline crystals embedded in the handle. The wand is extremely powerful. I have used it approximately 8 times, and every time I have used it, it has successfully manifested what I desired it to manifest. I thought I'd share this information with you, as very few, if any, people who deal in magic and materials ever talk about this alloy. I know all the evidence I've given is just anecdotal, but other folks who have made Electrum with me and have used some of the devices that were made from it have also experienced enhanced abilities or functionality. If you'd like to discuss this further, please email me back. I would be happy to do so. Time for a break. Well, folks, do you think I have obtained a piece of Electrum? Oh, you know it. When we come back, I'll tell you about it. Isn't that interesting? Okay, also, you know what? This show usually comes out every Friday, but sometimes there are projects that I only let you know about through my free e-newsletter, and sometimes there are things that I need to let you know about instantly. And I can sit down with my free e-newsletter and I can write an email with my own fingers there and hit send, and boom, it goes to you right away. So I hope that you'll go right now and subscribe. Go to joshuapwarren.com. Right there on the homepage, there's a little box where you put your email address in there and you hit submit, and then you'll get an automated email from me instantly. And that email already has some links to some free online goodies from me. Things that will start helping you to improve your life and to make your life more magical. Go sign up for the free e-newsletter at joshuapwarren.com. And remember, there is no period after the P in joshuapwarren.com, the website address. All right, I am Joshua P. Warren, and you are listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. And I will be right back.
Your business deploys AI pilots everywhere. But are they going anywhere? Or are they stuck in silos, exhausting resources, unable to scale? Maybe you don't need hundreds of AI pilots. You need a holistic strategy. IBM has 65,000 consultants with Gen AI expertise who can help you design, integrate, and optimize AI solutions. So you're not just deploying AI, you're scaling it across your business. Learn more at ibm.com/consulting. IBM, let's create.
This July 4th, celebrate freedom from spills, stains, and overpriced furniture with Anabe, the only machine washable sofa inside and out, where designer quality meets budget-friendly pricing. Sofas start at just $699, making it the perfect time to upgrade your space. Anabe's pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and interchangeable slip covers are made with high-performance fabric that's built for real life. You'll love the cloud-like comfort of hypoallergenic, high-resilience foam that never needs fluffing, and a durable steel frame that stands the test of time. With modular pieces, you can rearrange anytime. It's a sofa that adapts to your life. Now through July 4th, up to 60% off site-wide at washablesofas.com. Every order comes with a 30-day satisfaction and love. Send it back for a full refund. No return shipping, no restocking fees, every penny back. Declare independence from dirty, outdated furniture. Shop now at washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/iHeart.
Welcome back to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I am your host, the Wizard of Weird, Joshua P. Warren, beaming into your wormhole brain from my studio in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, where every day is golden and every night is silver. Agitato Zume! And now let's get back to this story about Electrum and where I'm leading to the Electrum Ring. And I want to say right up front here before I continue, thank you for that email, Jimmy. Jimmy and I have continued to correspond, and I guess this is also a good time to remind all of you, especially if you are new to this show, that I get a ton of emails on a daily basis, and it is absolutely physically impossible for me to respond to everyone, but I do try my best to read everyone, so just keep that in mind. All right, so as I had told you, I do not recall having heard about Electrum before, which is hard to believe, but it's like that kind of stuff happens all the time. So I said, okay, let me learn more. Just doing my own independent research here on this substance called Electrum. And so I turned back to the almighty Wikipedia. And let me just say something about Wikipedia. I don't think that Wikipedia is the most trusted source when it comes to learning about people, like people's lives, or things that are, modern day oriented in terms of like politics, because people have an agenda. They get on there and they change that kind of information. You can't always believe everything you read about a person or a person's beliefs or all that on Wikipedia. But when it comes to like old historical factual stuff, Wikipedia is a great place to just look up some basics. So that's why that's occurring alloy of gold and silver. It's like, interesting. It says naturally there, with trace amounts of copper and other metals. Its color ranges from pale to bright yellow, depending on the proportions of gold and silver. It has been produced artificially and is also known as green gold. Okay, so apparently it is possible to find some of this out there in nature, but that's not how you usually come across it. It's usually man-made. It says Electrum was used as early as the 3rd millennium BC in the Old Kingdom of Egypt, sometimes as an exterior coating to the pyramidions atop the ancient Egyptian pyramids and obelisks. Whoa, that's pretty important. So we're talking about like the capstone of pyramids and obelisks in ancient Egypt were made from electrum. It was also used in the making of ancient drinking vessels. The first known metal coins were made of electrum, dating back to the end of the 7th century or beginning of the 6th century BC. For several decades, the metals awarded with the Nobel Prize have been made of gold-plated electrum. So, if we go to the etymology here, the word origin, they say the name electrum is the Latinized form of the Greek word electron mentioned in the Odyssey. Back here, folks, referring to a metallic substance consisting of gold alloyed with silver. And then it also talks about how this word electron has a connection to amber's electrostatic properties. And anyway, composition. It consists primarily of gold and silver, sometimes found with traces of copper, platinum, or other metals. And then it says in the Hellenistic period, electrum coins were issued by the Carthaginians. Okay, so let's read more about the history of this. Electrum is mentioned in an account of an expedition sent by a pharaoh, Sire, or Sahur, I don't know how to pronounce this name, S-A-H-U-R-E, Pharaoh Sahur, or Sar, of the 5th dynasty of Egypt. It is also discussed by Pliny the Elder in his Naturalis Historia. Electrum is also mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures, whose prophet Ezekiel is said to have had a vision of Jehovah on a celestial chariot. And then it talks about all the early coinage, the earliest known electrum coins, Lydian and East Greek coins found under the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus are currently dated to the last quarter of the 7th century. So this goes on and on and on with how powerful this was in the ancient world. And I mean, again, there are all these examples of beautiful ancient coins that were made. But it seems like the Egyptians really found this to be a mystical item. In fact, there is a picture here, an actual photograph of a mummified male head from ancient Egypt, and it's covered in electrum. So imagine, you know how occasionally you get to see an unwrapped mummy head. They all kind of look the same, like from ancient Egypt. It's one of those. It looks like most of the mummy heads that you've seen, and it's got electrum all over it. So, look, everything that Jimmy was telling me was correct. Okay, so you go back and you start looking, and then there are all these ties that go into alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone. I could probably sit here for 2 hours and tell you about all this stuff related to electrum. So I was like, okay, sold. How do I get some of this stuff? So I started looking around on the internet, and you can do this yourself. And because I just wanted to start experimenting and see, what would happen to me. And you know what? I started looking online, and there wasn't a whole lot out there that was considered actual electrum, other than some ancient coins that are quite expensive. And I wouldn't want to get an ancient coin and necessarily melt it down or something like that. So I was like, I don't even know if that's the right way to go for me. But then, even worse, I discovered that there are lots of fakes out there, which is sadly common these days online, as you probably know. But I'm a fortunate guy. I know a lot of people. I have a lot of friends in high and low places, so I started calling my friends. I started using my resources, And I finally found a highly specialized artisan right here in the United States who makes authentic electrum rings. And I made sure this is the real deal, and I bought one. Of course, this was custom made. This artisan, he got my ring size for the ring. I decided I would wear this on my right ring finger. And so I gave him my size, which is size 12, by the way. And he smelted and hammered out this ring just for me. And so I could not wait to get this thing in the. I was so excited that I said, you know, money to expedite the production of this thing. And he said, yeah, sure, you know, we can do that. He was great. This guy is the best. And so, and again, so the ring itself is actually 14 karat gold plus silver, but smelted and then delicately hammered right there. And so here's what happened when I received this. I opened the box, and inside is this, and I'm wearing it right now. I just slipped it off, and I'm looking at it under my my desk here. It's a thin that it you literally kind of I don't know if you would say it is the right word, but you can actually see the hammer marks on this thing, where this was delicately hand hammered specifically to my size. On the inside, it's stamped with 14K. And sure enough, when you look at this thing under the light, like I'm doing right now, it does look like a pale gold, but sure enough, there is this sort of like barely detectable greenish glow, which I absolutely love, because in my experiences with trying to manifest stuff, gold and silver and greens are colors that I associate with money for obvious reasons. I know green might not do it for everybody, but here in the US it does. So I pull this thing out and I get this feeling as soon as I see it, like, this is something special. I slipped it on my finger. Okay, so this is about to become like a Lord of the Rings ring. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I put it on. And I'm going to tell you how you can get one of these too. I'm Joshua P. Warren. You're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Podcast Network. And I will be back after these important messages.
The best AI assistant isn't one that knows the whole world. It's one that knows your world. A custom assistant built on Watson X with IBM's Granite models can leverage your trusted data, be easily trained on your workflows, and integrate with your apps. It can be tuned to do just what you need, because the more AI knows about your world, the more it can help you do. Learn more at IBM.com/product. IBM. Let's create.
This July 4th, celebrate freedom from spills, stains, and overpriced furniture with Hannah Bay, the only machine